Welcome to the Top Order podcast. It's the 9th match of Cricket World Cup 2023, Afghanistan versus India. We're also going to preview match 10. It's a big one. It's Australia versus South Africa. Who does the pitch favour? We'll also have a little bit of retrospect on today's game. Another big run rate swing in this World Cup. All coming up on the Top Order podcast. Stay tuned.
Brilliant. That was some great quality audio production from me. That was superb.
Mate, well, look, we never ever tire of that music that's available on all good free music download sites. If you want to listen to the full version, it gets really nice in the middle 8. But we're here talking about match 9 in this T20, 50 over. You've thrown me, Baldy. World Cup. New Zealand still sitting proud at the top of the table thanks to their 1.9 net run rate, but India have made a pretty decent dent in that in match day 9 today. Guys, what were your thoughts at half time in that game? First and foremost, Afghanistan getting away to pretty respectable score, 272, but it got blown away like a Scud missile into the side of the destroyer that was the Afghanistan first innings total. Yeah, what were the thoughts at half time? Did we give Afghanistan any chance?
Oh, probably not much of a chance, but I thought they did well to get to 270 from where they were at 60 for 3. I mean, we talked in the preview about so much relying on their openers, Gurbaz and Ibrahim, to score the bulk of the runs for Afghanistan. We knew that they'd be a good bowling side, but the question mark really was whether or not they could score enough runs. And at 60 for 3, it looked like, it could have been all out 140, 170 at best. But, the captain and Omarzi put together a good partnership. They both made leading contributions. And I think, Afghanistan should look back on that game against a good Indian attack that does feature Bumrah. It does feature some decent spinners that really made Australia look pretty foolish, really, in their game. And they made 270 for 2. So I think that's a real highlight to take away from Afghanistan, even if the reality of the situation was that on that wicket, it was maybe 30 or even maybe 40 runs light.
So it's an interesting one because we've talked throughout these review shows that wickets in hand is the key for any score that a side is setting or chasing. Afghanistan had wickets in hand going into that last 20 overs, and it was just some great bowling by India that kept them to probably a more modest score. They were definitely set up to double their score at the 30 over mark. At the halftime mark, I would be happy that I've got something to bowl at, but know that I'm slightly behind the ball when it comes to Afghanistan, and I need to get some inroads early, which unfortunately did not come.
And what about that Indian batting performance, guys? Rohit, obviously the top of the order, but decent strike rates. Ishan Kishan, a little bit circumspect, sort of run a ball or thereabouts for him, but then icing on the cake provided by we know who. Yeah, thoughts on their early tournament form, boys?
Yeah, for me, I am really excited that Rohit Sharma's hit some form early. Virat Kohli, he looks to be there. He might just explode into some explode into some incredible form towards the end of this tournament, middle and end of this tournament. But the fact that Rohit Sharma scored runs early takes a bit of pressure off him, and he really set up this victory to help with that run rate early on. I do have a question about Shubman Gill and his sickness a little bit later on, but I'll just pass to Baldy.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more, Raj. I mean, you have a look at the first 2 games for India. India were in a hole, worked their way back. Their middle order contributed heavily to that victory over Australia, and now in this victory over Afghanistan, it's their top order that got them off to a rollicking start in the power play, 94 in the first 10 overs. By the time Rashid Khan came on in what I think was maybe the 18th over, something like that, it was too late. India were none for 150, and the game was even with 120 to get, the game was all but done there. So the question mark for me is not so much India's batting, but why did Afghanistan wait so long to introduce their strike weapon into the attack, where he could have, even in the power play, been so much danger. And you look at the way that teams have handled Rashid in years gone past. Teams have had to sit on him at 4, 5.5 and over, even in T20 internationals. He could have really rested the momentum back in back in Afghanistan's favour a little bit. As it was, he bowled 8 overs for 57. He still went for 7s and over. But I think he could have been the game-changing kind of trump card that maybe Afghanistan, if they look back on their tactics, could have played him a little bit earlier.
But Baldy,
So
I was going to
the
ask
question
you
I have, and it's around Shubman Gill and sorry, Binksy. The question I have is just, Baldy broke the news around dengue fever and how long it takes to recover from it in one of our earlier pods. How worried are you as an Indian fan if he is out for the majority, if not the whole tournament? I mean, Ishan Kishan's there. He's doing a great job. Well, he did a great job in this game. He looks like a bit of a Band-Aid. If maybe that's being a little bit rude to him, but are you worried as an Indian fan that Shubman Gill may not make this tournament?
I don't know. They've got enough squad depth to be able to cover for him. And if you have a look at the contributions of someone like KL Rahul, who's batting at 5, who could quite equally bat at the top of the order as well, they've got lots of different looks that they can throw at opposition. So I'm not particularly concerned. Yes, Gill is an upgrade over just about anyone in the form that he's in, but I think it's much more important that they get him healthy. And if they bring him back underdone, dengue's one of those ones where it saps your energy, and it can sap your energy for a very long time. And if you relapse, you can really it's not quite as bad as glandular fever, but it can really have some interesting repercussions if you have a bit of a relapse. So the most important thing for Shubman is to get himself well, get himself healthy. In the interim, Ishan Kishan, I hope I pronounced that correctly. I always get it wrong. Is a fine replacement for him. Absolutely fine.
Yeah. Raj,
and, being a lefty,
quick.
He does give them a little bit of a different option, a right hand, left hand at the top of the order. Binksy.
Yeah, my very quick 2 cents on that. I think we've often talked about India's embarrassment of riches, particularly in that batting lineup. But I don't think they'll be super concerned. Ishan Kishan's got a pretty decent record himself, averaging over 40 in ODIs. Obviously, a very relatively limited sample size. And look, I do think we probably underestimate just how long this tournament is in terms of the 11,000 kilometers or something like that India need to travel around the country over the course of the next several weeks. So I think, as Baldy said, really important to try and get everyone fit. And I think we're seeing that with a number of teams, aren't we? Ben Stokes is in Cottonwall. They haven't broken the glass and pushed the panic button on him just yet. Similarly, looks like Kane's coming right for New Zealand, and Tim Southee as well. Looks like he's going to be fit if they need him for that next game. But I think very much a case of don't break the emergency glass until you need to on some of these guys. Is there anything else we want to cover before we move on, Raj? I know you're keen to throw another couple of questions at Baldy about the game tomorrow, South Africa, Australia. But anything else on India, Afghanistan before we move on, or do you want to tee Baldy up?
Just one thing from me, and it's around Jasprit Bumrah. Really just dominating bowling innings with the areas that he's bowling, both with the new ball and like the death today where he took 3 of his wickets. He's just such a point of difference, and you forget that a pace bowler can be that kind of point of difference with bowling good lines and then being able to absolutely take the wind out of the sails of a team going for it at the end. He is going to be a real point of difference for India. You couple that with the spin of Rahul and Jadeja in the middle, where they're just absolutely stifling attacks or batting attacks, batting counter attacks. India really do look like the Everest there of the cricketing world when it comes to the bowling. So it's going to be interesting to see what team can break away and score those 300 plus scores against them, because they're going to need it.
Yeah, well, they're going to have to attack Siraj as Afghanistan did. I mean, he went for 76 off his 9 overs in this game, and they're going to have to do what Australia did and attack Hardik, I think, because you have a look at the way Jasprit bowled against Australia in that first game. He got his areas absolutely perfect. A little bit of movement, just enough to take the ball away from the edge of the bat. I mean, the one that he bowled to get, did he get Marsh?
Marsh.
Got Marsh early with a really good one that good opening batsman nick off to. So, he's going to be really, really tough to handle in any kind of conditions that provide pace and bounce in this tournament. Even on that wicket that was pretty conducive to turn against Australia, he was outstanding. And, 4 for 39 in this game, say no more. He is the premier bowler in this tournament as far as pace bowling is concerned at this point.
Absolutely, and the scary thing is, he operated, he knocked the cream off the top, didn't he? And then came back at the end. Didn't really, see that middle overs impact that he can have as well. We've talked about that a hell of a lot, about having bowlers that can bowl in all three phases of the game, and scary to think if he puts that together. That's an even more mouthwatering prospect, particularly if you're an Indian fan. Raj, let's lead Baldy in. You've got some questions about his countrymen tomorrow against South Africa, who look in a pretty decent vein of form themselves. I think some records broken in their last game. We talked about them in the previous show. They've started pretty well.
Yep. So I guess my main question to Baldy is a simple one. It's how worried are you after the commanding performance that South Africa has had in their first game of this World Cup, and the absolute domination they had at the end of the Australian South Africa series leading into this World Cup?
Yeah, it's a great question. Would you like the Chicken Little view or would you like the secret view? I've got both. Which one would you like?
Give us
choice.
both, Baldy.
Okay.
Time is of no object here, except you've got 2 minutes.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. Look, the Chicken Little view is that India had the wood over Australia coming into this match by virtue of their dominant performance in the warm-ups, and South Africa, if you look at the last three games in particular, the same. South Africa's batting in particular dominated Australia's bowling. If you want the secret view, and the view that I'm projecting out there into the universe, it's a slightly different bowling attack this time around that Australia are going to throw at South Africa. So they're going to be able to throw Starc, they're going to be able to throw Hazlewood, who I thought was excellent against India, and they're going to be able to throw Cummins at South Africa. Looks that they didn't see as much. Okay, yes, they saw a little bit of Hazlewood in that warm-up series, but not as much. I think Australia have got a better bowling attack this time around to trouble the South Africans, to trouble guys like Temba Bavuma early doors. Australia are going to need to get more out of Adam Zampa, who they got nothing from against India on a wicket that should have suited him, and they got not very much from Glenn Maxwell. As if you're in the Australian setup, if you're in the Australian coaching camp, the second full-time spinner for Australia. Now, mileage may vary on whether or not he's a full-time or a part-time spinner. Choose your words, whatever you like. We've seen part-time spinners, particularly guys like Rachin Ravindra, do well at this World Cup so far. Australia need to get lots out of Maxwell. They need to get 10 overs at under 6 with a wicket or two from him. If he goes none for 70 off his 10, South Africa will get away from Australia, and you can see how damaging their middle order is. Klaasen, Miller, etc. They're the guys that can really take it away from Australia. Actually, to be fair, even their top four is in good form. So Australia really have to get early wickets like they did against India. They have to put them under pressure with the ball, and we need to see something from our spin contingent. Otherwise, it's going to be Australia having to chase 400, and I don't think we can do that. I think we could chase 300 with the guys that are in our side, Marnus, Smith, etc. They can pace a 300 chase. I don't think we have the firepower unless Marcus Stoinis comes in for Cameron Green and scores 100 off 70 balls to go from 300 to 400 in the last 10 overs.
Yeah, look, it's a mouthwatering prospect that the teams have obviously got, I think, almost opposite records last 5 games, haven't they? I think South Africa 4 wins and a loss in their last 5, and Australia the other way around, 4 losses and just a single victory. But it does look as if it is lining up as that batting attack for South Africa, where the guys that didn't perform in that game against Sri Lanka, the likes of Klaasen, Bavuma, they're due a score, and then to then have Rassie van der Dussen and Quinton de Kock in form. Whilst that Australian bowling attack, Baldy, is much vaunted and has got a lot of skill, I'd imagine that they are seriously sort of putting some ink on that whiteboard to try and think about what the plans are for those guys over the course of the next 24 hours or so. Raj?
Last question and I'll give it to you, Binksy. So, since the stadium in Lucknow there has been resurfaced, they've played, I think, 4 ODIs. I was reading there, and the highest score batting first is 253. So they are, expecting maybe a lower scoring game in this one day. Who do you think that benefits in that low scoring, more grinding game?
Yeah, look, I'll take the proposition of the question, and yeah, if it is a low scoring game, I think that probably actually evens the playing field a little bit. To Baldy's point, it gives Australia the ability to perhaps pace a chase, or put a challenging target on the board for South Africa, and then say, you guys chase that down against our attack. But I think the one thing I would say is, we thought the last World Cup was going to be, a high run scoring World Cup. We've probably said this one is probably more likely to be the case in these early pitches. I think the real good thing about the pitches that we've seen so far, I think, is that we've seen a little bit of pace in them for the seamers, which has helped the likes of a Jasprit Bumrah, someone who's class, who's going to extract whatever is in that wicket. But it's also meant that when guys get in, that they're going to go big. So again, I don't know how much you've got to obviously do your scouting and look at what the last 5 scores have been. But I think a World Cup's a little bit different, and this is going to be the first or second deck that they've used at Lucknow. And as the tournament goes on, the groundsmen get less and less time to produce quality wickets when they've got less time in between the games and perhaps using a reused surface. They've had some time to get the rolling and the hours into these pitches, I would imagine, over the last couple of weeks. And for me, that probably means that we might see something in excess of that pass score. So yeah, go and get your money on a low score is probably the synopsis of that entire ramble. Well, boys, it's been an exciting start to this World Cup. Plenty of intrigue over the course of the last several days, 9 matches. Anything else before we wrap things up? And we will, of course, be back in your feed tomorrow with reaction to that game, of course.
I think just touching on the futures of Australia and South Africa, the team that wins this game is going to go a long way towards qualifying for the semi-finals, I think. I think Australia and South Africa are pretty much locked in a battle around that 3, 4, 5 spot. We've seen some sides rise to the top early doors in this tournament. We've seen some sides that have, started slowly, as we would expect. But I think this one for Australia, having lost the opening game to India, is, I don't want to say must win, but they must win this game. If they go 0-2, it's going to be a long hill to climb to get back to contention. If South Africa can go 2-0 to start the tournament, they're well on their way to ensconcing themselves in that top 4. And then there are sides out on the outside looking in, trying to get into that top 4. So a really, really big game for Australia and South Africa. Net run rate, not so much important for this game. I think the teams are looking at going, okay, well, we need to come away with 2 points. If we can do that by winning by 5 or 10 runs or 7 balls or whatever, we'll take that. We don't necessarily need to win inside 35 overs to get a massive run rate boost. It's all about those 2 points at the end of the day.
Awesome. Well, boys, nice to chat. I'm happy to announce that my new hotel on my work trip has got Sky Sports, so I am going to be able to keep a little bit more up to date with the coverage than trying to beg, steal and borrow app access here in the UK. So yeah, fantastic. I've got the cricket channel on in the background at the moment. Bizarrely, it's showing a rerun of the 1996 World Cup. Can't believe they've not got some more recent highlights to stick on there, given where we're at in this tournament. But yeah, great to chat cricket with you boys, and we will be back on the Top Order podcast pretty much every day throughout the course of this tournament with reaction to games that have happened and previewing games coming up. If you do want to see any particular content or opinions, please drop a note in the social comments or drop us a line at the Top Order Podcast at gmail.com or find our website, thetoporderpodcast.com. But for now, it is good night and God bless from me here in London, and from the boys in Auckland, it's Kiora and good morning from Auckland, and we'll see you tomorrow.